106 KMEL.
It's your girl Shay Diddy, 106 KMEL, and I have the pleasure of finally getting to sit down with my girl, Karrine Steffans. How you feeling?
Today, I'm good.
Today?
Today.
You still make it seem like you don't feel good every day.
I was good yesterday, and I might be good tomorrow, but you never know. So I like to keep it really honest. Today is a good day.
You seem like you've come a long way as far as how you've matured from model, vixen, to author, and that's like a huge step from an author to a model. How would you say you kind of made that jump? What made you make that jump to be an author?
Because I've never been a model.
Never.
That never happened.
Okay.
Just because someone takes pictures of you, doesn't make you a model.
Okay.
I get my pictures taken because I'm cute, but not because I'm a model.
So how would you define yourself then?
And I did videos for a year.
Yeah.
13 years ago.
Right.
So to put that in perspective. So none of those things ever defined me. I've been writing books since I was 5.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I've always been an author. You just didn't know it until 2005.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't a big jump for me because I was always in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else had to jump.
Mm-hmm.
I never jumped.
So you always knew that was something that you wanted to do?
I've been doing it since I was 5.
Yeah.
You know, I told my grandfather when I was 5 that I would be on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Oh, wow.
And him and I had that discussion in Brooklyn at a newsstand when I was 5. So that was something that he put into my head. I told him I would do it, and then I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was between 5 and 7, I would practice my Oprah cry.
Really?
Yeah, because I knew I was going to do that too. This is all, I planned all this. So this is not, it's not a shock to me. It's just a shock to other people who don't have plans like I have.
You know, that's so funny because you are like seriously a businesswoman. When you look at you, when you hear you speak, just because you know how people talk and people try to put the negative or paint people in a negative light, but at the end of the day, look what's really going on here. My girl has put out 5 successful books.
3 New York Times bestsellers.
Exactly.
Millions of copies sold in several different languages around the world.
Exactly.
And I'm in every country in the world, whether it's English or in their particular language.
And you have to acknowledge that and just take your hat off to that, because regardless of what anybody has to say, you're doing your thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you have your own publishing company as well.
Mm-hmm. I have a publishing company. I have a publishing partner that allows me to bring in other writers, publish their work. They handle my pressing and my promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last couple of years, been working with different people and getting their books done, and just trying to find what that company needs to put out first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have books lined up.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, we start releasing content because I've been working on that for several years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and all my deals are signed. All my deals are copyrighted under my company's names, even though I have deals with those companies that I have deals with, like HarperCollins, Hachette Books, which used to be Warner. They all have deals with my company, not with me. So all my books have been through my companies.
That's really dope. Congratulations. Now, what was the first book that came out in this company?
For the one that I have right with Steffans. Okay, so Steffans Publishing's first book was Confessions.
Mm-hmm.
All the books are with my companies. So we had Confessions first, Confessions of a Video Vixen in 2005. Then we did the Vixen Diaries in 2007.
Okay.
We did the Vixen Manual in 2009. We did Satisfaction in 2011. And then I did How to Make Love to a Martian in 2013? This year?
Yeah.
Earlier this
February.
year. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Now, what was the inspiration behind How to Make Love to a Martian? I know we were talking about this a little bit before, but like, what really made you want to write this book?
There were a few things that happened around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a serious case of writer's block for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So even though books were coming out, I hadn't written anything in 4 years because I would write things ahead of time. So if a book came out, let's say in 2011, I probably wrote it in 2010, you know, or maybe 2009. It only takes me about 30 days to write a book. Maybe 60 if it's a really big book. Like the manual took me 60 days because I had to write and edit, and it was a really, really big book. But for 4 years, I couldn't write. I had a crazy block because of personal things that were happening, and I had lost it.
Right.
And then I went through. I had like a catatonic experience last year, where I remember not being able to speak.
Oh, wow.
For it's only 10 days, right? But for like those 10 days, I literally could not speak.
That's crazy.
It was something happened. Someone said something to me that stopped me,
oh, wow.
like in my tracks. Like and not in a good way, like just kind of shut down all my organs, shut me down completely, and I couldn't talk. And I literally couldn't. And then all of a sudden, at that time, Wayne started getting sick, and I started getting calls and text messages that he wasn't well, and it scared me to death. Right. It scared me that there was maybe an opportunity, a chance that I would lose this person in my life, and someone who had been so pivotal in making me who I am, teaching me and reminding me about who I am.
Right.
Because there were times in my life when I forgot who I was.
Right.
You know, because of other relationships or marriages, whatever I was going through, and he always reminded me, you know, who I was. You know, he would always pull me to the side, like, don't forget, like, you're Karrine. Like,
right.
You don't, you know, come on now. He would always pick me up, and somehow, whether he knew he was doing it or not, and I all of a sudden couldn't keep the words in anymore. Like, they just started pouring out because I felt desperate.
Right.
I felt desperate. I felt like if I don't get this done now, and something happens to him or to me, like, the world would never know.
Right.
You know, or they would never believe that this story isn't, you know, rap star meets video vixen and they have one night stands all over the planet. Like, they wouldn't believe that it wasn't like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They wouldn't believe that it was just really, really real. A real core, like, to our core, like a crazy friendship that goes through a lot. And that he, ironically, taught me how to love a person.
Oh, wow.
Which is the most enlightening experience of my life.
That's crazy for Lil Wayne, though.
That's what's so ironic.
Right.
So, really taught me how to love and accept a person, not regardless of who they are, but because of it. And learning how to love someone, not the way you want to love them, but the way they need to be loved.
Right.
You know, which is completely different. And having no expectations and no boundaries to that, like allowing someone to be themselves and being okay with who they are, not wanting to change them. You know, no matter how much you want them to do what you want them to do, people are people, and you just have to let them. Doesn't mean that they love you any less. Doesn't mean that, you know, the relationship is any less valid. It just means that they are who they are.
Right.
You know, and not to take everything so personally. It's not always about you.
Right.
You know, so he taught me a lot about that. So that book meant a lot to me, and it means a lot to him, and it means a lot to the fans because they watched that relationship since 2007. It played out very publicly.
Right.
We always kept it very public. And it means a lot to them because now they know how deep that is.
Yeah.
You know, and they see him in a different light.
Right.
You know, and they see me in a different light.
See a different aspect of Lil Wayne and you that you may not have known without this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So did he get to read it before you actually published it?
I was reading it to him while I was writing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was his reaction like?
You know, the book is an homage to what an amazing person he's been to me, even in our struggles as friends.
Yeah.
We fight a lot.
Yeah.
We have a lot of arguments.
As you should. Yeah.
Always. It's like every 60 days on cue. It's just like somebody's mad at somebody else for something, but because we're emotional and highly emotional creatures and very creative people. People who are highly creative usually a lot more tightly wound.
Yeah.
So he always loved it, still loves it. Certain parts of it I think he loves more than others. And it's all true, and none of it was hurtful.
Right.
You know, so it's in good standing.
So of course that means now that your relationship with him is
what?
Is great? Or you guys are still friends and just definitely...
We will always be friends.
Right.
And that's something that we both know. Like, we'll always be connected in some weird way. But I do think that a particular part of our relationship is over.
Right.
And what's so crazy is, him and I had this conversation a couple days ago, the realization that someone teaches you how to love because you're meant to love somebody else.
Right.
You know
you kind of have to go through that in order to grow
right.
so that you can love someone else the way you should.
Exactly. So it's like this love that you taught me, it's not for you.
Right.
It's not for you. It's for somebody else.
Well, that's spectacular. That makes me... I'm happy for you. I mean, because, you know what I mean? Looking from the outside in, people are going to assume things. And like you said, I know people are always going to have a lot to say, whether they say it to you or if they say it behind your back. But when you actually get to know the person and you see what the meaning is behind it, then it's like it's a whole different platform. And it's just like, you can't do nothing but salute your girl because you're doing your thing. You're really writing from your heart. And this is something that you've been doing. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to write a book and collect a check.
No, I've been doing it my whole life. And now I'm 8 years in the industry.
Right.
I'm 8 years in.
So when you wrote your first book, and I believe, what was it called? Your very first one?
Confessions of a Video Vixen.
Was it hard for you to put your experiences to paper like that?
That was a difficult experience because it was the first time I'd ever admitted those things to myself.
Okay.
So it was cathartic.
Uh-huh.
I remember having panic attacks all through it.
Really?
I remember going through the chapter about being raped and kidnapped and raped at 13.
Yeah.
And never having told that story ever before.
Right.
No one knew. I'd never told anyone.
Right.
So here I am, these years later, and I'm sitting in my bed writing this thing and having to recall this horrible experience, as a child.
Yeah.
13 years old. You know what I mean? And that 3-day ordeal, and then the ordeal, and the consequences of that, and coming home, and my mother not being sympathetic and not listening to me, and therefore I never told anybody, you know? So I was recalling things that I hadn't told anyone. A lot of that stuff I hadn't even told myself.
Right.
So it was very difficult to get, but I wrote that book and edited that book in 30 days. It was a crazy process. I was consumed with it once I got into it, and it was cathartic, but it was hard. It was therapy for me, though. It was really good at the end.
And so in the same book, I know you revealed a lot of your experiences with some of the people in the industry. Did you actually call any of these people and say, hey, I'm writing this book, and what were their reactions like? I mean,
a lot of people were like, this is, initially before they realized how big it was, everyone was like, because no one had ever done that before in that genre, in that industry. Because no one had ever seen that before. So I don't think anyone understood what that meant.
Yeah.
So no one was upset at first because no one understood what writing a book for HarperCollins, the larger publishing, the largest publishing world and publishing company in the world. They didn't, Rupert Murdoch's company. No one understood what that meant.
Right.
Until it happened. And it was like, so I did have conversations. And honestly, I like to let people read their parts before I publish them. I like to get people's opinion. Sometimes we change things.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't. Just depends on if it's something that can be changed. If it's a little too much, I'm okay with that. I have people like Jamie Foxx, for instance. I brought him the second book, Diaries, was a chapter about my meeting him and the things that happened.
Right.
And even though we didn't have that kind of relationship, I just wanted him to just read his part.
Right.
And he read it and he liked it. So
like,
it went in the book. Yeah. So there are some people who do get to read their parts.
Right.
And we have discussions. Some things get changed. Most things don't. But I don't write about things that have nothing to do with me.
Right.
So even though I know a lot of things about people, if what you do in your private life has not affected me in any way, then I don't have to write about that. It's not about you.
Right.
It's about me and how your life in dealing with me, how it has affected me.
Right.
Whether it's positive or negative, how my bumping into you and our paths crossing, how that has changed my life and how it has formed who I am today.